Hi everyone, my name is Ali Tremblay. I'm an aspiring MMA fighter and I am starting my YouTube channel. So I wanted to just make this video to introduce who I am, why I got into fighting, how I got into fighting, and what my goal is for all of this. So my purpose behind starting this channel is of course that you can all follow along my journey to become a fighter, but to inspire other people, because I have a day job, and so I started pursuing this dream outside of my typical day-to-day, and I'm going to show you all how I do that, why I do that, and I truly hope that inspires other people too to get out of their comfort zone and to just get out of their normal day-to-day, and it's going to be awesome. So why did I become a fighter? People actually ask me this all the time, just in normal day-to-day life, because I'm an engineer during the day, and that's actually the reason that I moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I moved here like 2.5 years ago and for my job, and I was working fully remote and experiencing a ton of anxiety and living in a new city, and I didn't have a lot of friends yet, and I was just kind of finding my way, and I was exploring my fitness, place in this world, because I was a ice hockey player for 20 years. I played Division I ice hockey in college, and so that was super high level, super competitive, and then all of a sudden it was over and I moved here. I started working out at this cardio kickboxing gym, and this gym was just for cardio. It was just to get a good workout in. And one of my friends asked if I'd like to try a different gym here in Fort Lauderdale that was actually more martial arts focused. She had done something similar before in a different location around here, so I was like, sure. And the other gym wasn't really working with my new work schedule, so I figured I would try it, and I really liked it. And I started learning Muay Thai, and I kept up with it, and then about 5 or 6 months into it, one of my coaches asked me if I would like to compete. So my initial thought was, no way, I've never even sparred before. Like, I'm not gonna compete, that's crazy. I'm gonna get punched in the face, and it was not really a goal of mine. But then I started thinking about it, and there's these beginner tournaments that people do at my gym, and I thought, okay, that might actually be kind of cool. So at the beginning of last year, I decided that I would set a goal to do one of these tournaments. And fast forward, I did 2 tournaments last year, and then I had a real amateur fight in a cage and everything. So that's what ended up happening. But at the time, I was like, no way, I'm not gonna fight, but I decided I would give it a try. So I bought some headgear, I started sparring at our advanced classes at the gym, and funny enough, I told my other coach about this, that I was gonna try to compete, and he just looked at me and he shook his head and was like, stay an engineer. It was like, stay an engineer. So that was pretty funny response, but I was like, okay, I'm not trying to make a career move here. I'm just trying to compete in one of these little tournaments, like, big deal. So I trained for this tournament, and I trained for like 4 months, like pretty intensely. I was going every single day, and I was working hard, and I was so nervous. And there was definitely moments before that where I was like, is this a good idea? Am I really gonna do this? Am I really gonna fight another person? Like, what am I doing? But I really wanted to. So I competed, and I ended up fighting against a girl who was like 30 pounds heavier than me, because at these tournaments, just anyone can show up, and there's not a lot of women there, so there's not enough people to do weight classes, so they're just, oh, go ahead and fight her. And so I did, and I won, and it was awesome. I learned that day that I really wanted to keep doing it. I think I said to one of my coaches that day, I looked at him and was like, I want to do this. Like, that was fun. And I didn't know what it meant, where I was going to go, but I knew that day that I was going to keep competing and going to keep fighting. So then I competed in another tournament about 2 months later. And between that time, during my first tournament, I learned that I was definitely a pressure fighter. Like, I threw a ton of punches, but it was mostly punches, like mostly boxing. My kicks and my knees and Muay Thai stuff wasn't really very well developed yet. And so I wanted to work on that between tournament 1 and tournament 2, and I started working with a new coach, and we were working so hard. And then at this next tournament, a couple of months later, I ended up fighting a girl who actually already had a few amateur fights. What that means is, rather than these tournaments that we were doing, like actual sanctioned fights where it goes on your record and everything. So I ended up fighting someone who actually already had gone to that, next little level, next step, and I beat her. And again, throwing just like so many punches. And kicks got a little better, still had a lot of work to do, but after that I knew that I was ready to actually do a real amateur fight. So after I competed there, then I went home for a couple of weeks to visit my family for the 4th of July holiday. This was last summer, and I did some thinking, and I was like, wow, if I really want to do this and devote enough time to it, I'm gonna have to probably give up some other things in my life. And at that point, I was still coaching a youth travel hockey team, which I absolutely loved, and I knew I couldn't do both because I would be giving half to them and half to me trying to compete and fight, and it wasn't gonna work. And so that was actually the first time I called one of my coaches, and it was the first time that I said out loud, I want to be a pro fighter, because I never told anyone that before. It was just this crazy thing that like just started to come in my head over the past few months, and I didn't want to like say it out loud. It was scary. And so I told my coach that, and he was like, go for it, you can do it, like what is stopping you? And so I made that decision that I would stop coaching hockey, and I was gonna really pursue this dream, do things. And then I scheduled a real amateur fight for November 12th, which was my first fight. And I had like a full training camp before that. I had gotten back from a trip, and then I had 5 weeks before this fight to truly take it seriously and have a fighting camp, so to speak. And it was awesome. I learned so much about this sport. There's so much that goes into the nutrition, the way that you have to treat your body, the sparring, all of it. It's just so many things. But if you truly commit to it and put it all together, it's just wild, the level that you can compete at. And I experienced that, and I won that fight too.
taking advantage of Ali's wide stance. Gets that motor running. It ain't gonna stop. Shows no follow through on her kicks. Maybe that's the key to her volume.
So I remember before the fight, my coach was sitting there wrapping my hands for me, and I was sitting there and I almost started crying with like tears of joy because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I was there. It was like such a cool venue, and so many people had come out to support me, and I couldn't believe I had gotten there already. And I was sitting there and he was wrapping my hands, and I was like, this is just like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's awesome. And this worship song came on as I was listening to my headphones, and it's like the lyrics go, you know, God had plans for me greater than my wildest dreams. He had plans for me. And I was like, this was the plan all along. And before I even knew about martial arts, before I knew anything, like I just knew that I was supposed to be there, and then that was gonna happen. And it's just so cool, so cool. So that was my experience with my first fight. And it's funny because years before, I remember when I was nearing the end of my hockey career, getting down on my knees and praying that I could keep competing. And I didn't know how, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know why I was praying that prayer, that I still wanted to just be a competitor, but I did. And then when that happened in my first fight, I was like, whoa, this is a crazy prayer answered, and I'm gonna keep going. So that's my story on why I started to come up with this dream to be a fighter, and that's what I've done so far, and I can't wait for you guys to follow along on what I'm doing. And if you have any questions about what I talked about, feel free to drop comments below. I can make a video about it, respond, whatever it is. And if you enjoyed this, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and I'll see you all next time.